Oh, from New York, you are listening to Extra Time. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, Kyle with a K, David Goss, back from MLS Next with a tan. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Tom Bogert, as always, with a mustache. What's up, everybody? This is the show when Dave returns that we would talk about MLS Next for like 25 minutes off the jump.
It's now.
But the present is just a little bit more pressing, let's say. Coaching change in Toronto this morning. Thank you, Toronto FC. You released the news before we recorded Extra Time. Kaylin is putting on her glasses here, down the nose to make sure she gets all the details correct. Bob Bradley has been relieved of his duties as Toronto FC manager, as well as, I believe, sporting director.
Wouldn't it be wild if it was only one?
Yeah. Mike Sorber also out, the assistant coach and technical director. Mike and Bob have been together for a long time. Terry Dunfield is the interim manager now in Toronto. Here is the quote from Toronto FC president Bill Manning. Bob has been a consummate professional with Toronto FC, and we thank him for his passion and tireless work during his time here. We are all disappointed that we were not able to achieve the results that we expected. There was a little bit of drama, you might remember, on this show. Kaylin Kyle alerted us to the possibility. The Athletic then put on an expose.
They broke it.
With all the details from vaping, etc. That was just the one that jumped to my head immediately. But there was a bit of a...
It's all you talk about all the time.
Italian mutiny of sorts, you might say.
Only cares about things Bernadeschi does off the field.
Get it off the plane, Berna. Anyway, 4 games without a loss. They lost to New England this weekend. Probably should have drawn. That's whack of the weekend for me. The offside flag up on Lorenzo Insigne. Keep that flag down. That goal should have stood. But did not say Bob in the end.
In your opinion.
In my opinion.
I've learned the instant replay ways. I taught everyone down at MLS Next Cup.
Couch it.
The legality.
Couch it.
Yeah. All the little referee lawyers being like, my opinion.
I'm not right or wrong, but what I believe is this. So let's start with just first impressions. Kaylin, your first impression. Bob Bradley let go. If we look at the record overall, 54 games, 0.98 points per game, 53 points, just 3 wins this season for Bob Bradley and Toronto FC. They are 4 points ahead of Miami in the Eastern Conference standings and 2 wins behind Miami. It has been rough going, and it felt like they were on the precipice of this for a while.
Yeah, I think I've been touching on this since MatchDay 4. I've been really critical of both Bob Bradley and, the organization of Toronto FC, but ultimately, you can't put all the blame on Bob Bradley. He is a fantastic coach, and you're not going to fire 22 players. You're always going to end up firing your manager of Bob Bradley. So in that way, it almost felt like it was just a matter of time, a moment in time, if they continued on the way that they were going. Now, on the flip side of it, you have to put blame on these players, though. You look at someone like Bernadeschi coming from Juve. Has he played like a player from Juve? No. Lorenzo Insigne. Has he played like he's played in Champions League games? No. You have Canadian internationals that haven't stepped up. Really, the only player that I think has put in consistent performances, and I'm not even just saying this because he's Canadian, is Richie Larea. He's the only one that has been a consistent mainstay player for this team through the good, the bad, and the ugly. So for the players, they have to look at themselves internally that you spent $33 million on a roster both in 2022 and now in 2023, and the performances aren't there. They're not inspiring. Draws aren't good enough. The fans in Toronto know football. It's a big Italian base, and it's also the hub of Canadian Soccer Association where the national team plays there. They've expanded the stadium. So it is a soccer culture there. They know when you're playing good. They know when you're playing bad. So it's kind of a rock between, you're caught between a hard, what's the saying that I'm looking for here?
Rock in a hard place.
Rock in a hard place. Thank you. This is why I have you guys here. For Bob Bradley, on one way, you feel bad for him, but he didn't get the best out of his players. He lost his players in the locker room, so you can say that. But on the flip side, the players aren't playing up to the potential that they need to be in Toronto.
So I agree with you, but the roster's flawed. We all knew that, right? You were talking about this team being in trouble 3-4 weeks into the season. I think most of the people here had worries about them. I picked them to be 9th in the East, so actually not that bad coming into the year.
But based on the players they had, 9th that would have been either way, this or that, still huge disappointment.
And the main concern there, and a lot of this is a lot of their signings have been older players, injury-prone players that were signed for short-term success. And even when you talk about Insigne and Bernadeschi, you're not talking about two guys who have carried their teams in the past. Right? They were both guys, as good as they've been, who were pieces in good teams. When you look at TFC over the course of time, they were a train wreck of a franchise coming into Major League Soccer. They settled under Tim Leiweke and Tim Bezbatchenko. They became, I think, the class of the league. When you talked about Major League Soccer from 2013 to 2019, teams that made the right decisions, smart decisions, and we talk about some of them all the time here. Beitashour and Justin Morrow as free agents, getting Mark Delgado out of the Chivas USA dispersal draft, bringing in players who could be difference makers, but also bringing in top-end talent. Since 2019, Tim Bezbatchenko left to work for Columbus Crew. They've won an MLS Cup. The guys he brought from Toronto that work under him, they've won an MLS Next Pro championship in Corey Ray and Issa Tall. And you look at Sean Rubio going and working in Austin. They were the second best team in the West yesterday. But you look at the one constant in Toronto, and it's Bill Manning. And Bill Manning elevated from being in charge of the business side to being in charge of the sporting side. And we all make the jokes about going on transfer market to sign Bernadeschi and Insigne. But when they brought in Javinko, Tim Leiweke was a huge part of that. And obviously he brought in Beckham and has that experience. That was a game-changing signing. Bernadeschi and Insigne is just trying to follow that same model. The league has changed. How are you going to change past it? How are you going to continue changing with it? And TFC, everyone you talk to, and everyone here has ties with people across Major League Soccer now. Because TFC was a model franchise, everyone went out and hired people from Toronto. So you've got Robin Fraser, you've got Greg Vanny, you've got assistant coaches, you've got scouts, right? We just saw TFC's head scout go to the Portland Timbers. Like, there are people around who know Toronto, and they all say this thing's not going to change unless that part of the franchise changes. I don't know how much, people above care about what's going on. And if people are in the stadium, then it doesn't matter or whatever. But when you look at this Toronto team, like, you could blame Bob Bradley for everything you want. He underperformed. Mm-hmm. There's a bad team.
And even the red flag, you just touched on it. People leaving. Yeah. People leaving to go to maybe a lesser club than a Toronto, because Toronto would be a club that anyone would want to sign at. Now when Toronto reaches out to you, even if you're a player, because players talk to players. How is it up in Toronto? How does it feel to be up in Toronto? There's been a lot of players that I've spoken to that have been like, not for me. Until things start to turn around, it's not a club that I want to maybe end my career on, or that we can lift a championship there, which is sad. I'm a Canadian person. I freaking love Toronto. Toronto games are some of the best games to go to. No disrespect to Montreal and Vancouver. Obviously, I grew up in the Vancouver Whitecaps organization. And Montreal, I played a World Cup game there, and the fans were electric. But Toronto, it's just, when it is good there on ground.
They know bad. We referred back to that. I mean, they've been through it. And really the only era that wasn't that was the Vanny Bezbatchenko era. This was a short-term project, Tom. It is clear that you don't go sign Matt Hedges and Sean John and Rosted and Diamande and all these players. Like, Bob understood what the project was, what he was being asked, which was, you got to win now. That was the job. Otherwise, you lose your job. His job is now gone. What do you make of all this? Just the totality of sort of the storyline. He was given the control as sporting director. He was the manager as well. All this responsibility almost feels like a shield for, again, what you were saying, Bill Manning and others in the front office, Dave. And now they're back to what? Sort of square one, which is like, if they don't win now, what was the point of all this? It's like a waste.
And they're in a really bad spot, kind of foundationally. I think the big picture here is that there is no quick fix. Mm-hmm. You thought that you could bring in Insigne and Bernadeschi, quick fix, or Bob Bradley, quick fix, whatever, all of the other bad decisions we made, all the other contracts we had to get out of, it would be a quick fix. The culture from the top, as David said with Bill Manning, is bad. Like, they have had so many executives leave without many being replaced. It's the front office is pretty bare right now. They just haven't replaced people. The culture within the locker room is really bad. Like, me, Paul Tenorio, and Josh Cloak wrote that story on The Athletic. Yeah, it was not hard to get people to talk, and that's the first sign. Like, it was very easy for people to talk, and talking. It was just a known thing that this, like, numerous players, like, this is the worst environment I've been in my career. Even as recently, so this story came out a month ago, and we had quotes like, "Get me out of here. This is the worst environment in my career." All this, we don't talk in front of Michael Bradley because we view him as a coach. All this stuff. Last week, I was talking to somebody who was like, "Get me out. I don't care where. Whoever, whatever you want to send me, I don't want to be here anymore. I can't be here anymore." So maybe that can start to change. Like, again, like you said, Kaylin, You fire a coach because you can't get rid of 22 players or 28 players. So it's just completely fractured there at this point. The relationship that came with Insigne and Bernardeschi, even together, it's not very good. The relationship between your best players and the coaching staff obviously was very bad, with Insigne and Bernardeschi trying to get Bob fired a month ago. What I will say is I'm almost shocked that this happened a month later. Like when after we had that article come out and talking to people after it came out, and again, it was a whole lot of people saying, "We're glad you wrote this." Like it's good that people can see this now, because this was what a lot of people behind the scenes are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So our thought was that maybe a week. We'll see, because they can't make the coaching change immediately after this article comes out. So I've been kind of on like red alert. Okay, is this going to be the week? Okay, is this going to be the week? So it's almost surprising that it took this long. And one more point on this is just the roster. It's bad. Like, not just what they inherited.
Bad though?
Not just what they inherited. Look at kind of the back, like Petretta, Rosted. They've been bad. Like Sean Johnson, like he's good, but you had to pay to get him. Matt Hedges, you had to overpay to get him, because again,
but they have that MLS experience that you need in Major League Soccer.
So I agree with you, except look at your franchise where you say, okay, Matt Hedges, he's on the wrong side of 30, he's injury prone. Fine if your midfield is not Michael Bradley. Right? Like, he can't cover for a guy who's also injury prone on the wrong side of 30. So I would agree with you if you were talking about Cincinnati, where you were like, we just need a little bit of experience, which was the other rumor with Hedges.
They wanted him, yeah.
Right? We just need a little bit of experience. We have players to cover.
Sorry, now in Cincinnati and a lot of other teams, we're not going to go more than one guaranteed year.
Yeah.
And Toronto did. And that's how they, and like, so when you're in a bad spot, when everybody knows the foundation is bad, you have to overpay for some of these players.
So I agree with you, Kalen. The names are good. Like, Mark-Anthony Kaye is a great player. He was national team. I think he could have played in the Premier League. The injuries, I think, have hurt him a bit. But that's what it feels like with Toronto, is it's names on paper and not a soccer team that makes sense.
And I think that this is one of the Achilles heels of Bob Bradley as a manager. I think he gets the best out of a team. I don't necessarily think he's a good man manager with big names. I think that's where he struggles, because you look at the teams he's gone to where he struggles. England, big names. Yeah. Toronto, big names, and those are those big names that are coming out though. And I don't know. I just feel like this Toronto team, I think that's a cop out to say that this isn't a good team on the field. It's a good team on paper with big names, but they have. We've seen bright spots in them in games where you're like, this is a good Toronto FC side when they are fully healthy.
Yeah, I mean,
everyone's like, Kalen, you can exit stage, right?
I'm just struggling to remember bright spots, to be honest with you, for this team all year.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
And again, too, like, a lot of this falls on Bob Bradley, obviously, because he's the coach and big name, big
and the sporting director.
Yeah,
not just the coach. So a lot of these signings over the course of the last year or so are decisions that he had to make with the project in mind. But again, who sets the project? What are the expectations? Like, there's a lot of blame to go around.
But what I will say,
to be clear, also, he did not sign Insigne.
Correct.
Right.
Bill Manning signed Insigne and then hired Bob Bradley. Bob Bradley and LAFC signed Carlos Vela. I think that's a difference that we have to state in terms of those projects and his experience in those projects.
I feel like Carlos Vela is like a one-off though as well. He's come to Major League Soccer and has completely bought in since the moment.
But that wasn't a guarantee. He didn't even buy in at Arsenal.
No, I know, but we've seen some players that have come to Major League Soccer, big names that have thinking, this is going to be easy. It's going to be a runaround. I mean, we touched on it on MLS 360 on the weekend, like players like a Pirlo or a Steven Gerrard that have come here and just have not worked out. So
before I let you go, but that's the beauty of Bob in that situation, right?
Before I let you go,
he was like the. I know
I feel
Tom's
like
Tom's waiting.
No, Tom's been trying to get one in.
Trying to get in. You know what, Tom?
Tom, no, go in.
I'm treating Tom like he treats his best friends on his soccer team. Like, hey, we'll get to you, bro. We'll get to you. He had Carlos Vela motivated in a way that I don't think we had ever seen Carlos Vela before.
Bob gets a lot of credit for Vela and the way he has performed at LA.
The way he set an expectation that was way high for him, that he asked him to meet it, the way he built the team and the style around how it would fit Carlos and gave him an opportunity to have the best season in MLS history. But I think that's the point here, that, like, to marry it all together is like Bob, like Insigne and Bernardeschi didn't owe Bob anything. They didn't look at Bob and say like, hey, he brought us here, we XYZ. They were like, we don't like this guy.
No, they're professional athletes. No, I disagree with that royally, because if you are a professional athlete, it doesn't matter what team you go to, it doesn't matter what press tag you have on, you want to play the best football. Now, again, okay, they didn't bring him in. But that doesn't mean you have loyalty to the coach. 100%. But that falls on the manager to get that loyalty out of the players, to work with them, to have that communication both on and off the pitch, where you do have everyone buy in. But to have so many problems, I mean, how many problems did you guys break? a lot of that comes down to an overall management. If you don't have an overall management that can rope everyone in together to get the right leader in the team, not your son leading the team, because that's not going to gain trust in a manager, that's where all those cracks start to show. And that's where your big time players don't buy in and think, you know what? They're not going to fire 22 of us. They're going to let you go. And it's just only a matter of time.
A lot of puzzle pieces not going to the same puzzle.
Let's also just
Sorry, I got
again,
very Italian.
No,
I'm
yeah,
a crazy girl now.
This
Just
is a
again,
discussion that needs to happen.
but
for
to
sure.
throw in on this of like not your son, Bill Manning hired his father to be the coach, right? So if Michael Bradley is not the guy you're building this team around anymore, and you think that that's a potential cultural issue in the locker room, Bill Manning hired Bob Bradley to run the team
But
over
look at
Michael.
Austin. Look at Austin.
I
Josh
think
Wolf.
having an 18-year-old Owen Wolf in a team is different than having
and also
Michael
Owen Wolf is
Bradley.
But it
one of
comes
the best
down to a
players.
manager giving your son a position of power
I think
on the
that's
team.
different. That's
if you
a
talk to
different
people there,
dynamic.
you'll hear that very differently.
He was, and again, to be fair again to Bob Bradley, and I guess Michael Bradley in this one too, is that at LAFC, the tactics are the same. Like with that, Carlos Vela had the single best season in MLS history. Bernardeschi plays that position, so it's again, there's a lot of blame to go around, but like I don't want it to just be a just Bob thing because
No, it's definitely not
again,
just Bob.
like,
No.
Vela, again, 34 goals and 15 assists, whatever it was. Bernardeschi has not been the same player. Everything on the field has been slow. Again, the roster for LAFC was better than this Toronto one and fit better and made more sense. But it's not just that. And then on the other side, so with Michael, and again, to be fair, even some of the details that we put up that, one player said he spends more time, he's an assistant coach, he's not a player. Like, we were told that like Greg Vanney, like Michael Bradley was in the coaches meetings a lot with Greg
that's
Vanney
not
as
new.
well. Like
Yeah.
he's getting his coach's license right now. He's always been destined to be a coach. So
And make him a coach.
and so what happens with Michael Bradley right now? Like, does he play again? I'm not sure.
Should we go to what's next for Toronto? I feel like it's probably
Is it
that
hot in
time.
here? Is it
Oh,
hot in here?
I don't know. Did you turn off the AC? What's going on?
I just think I want to hammer home just when you talk about the eras of Major League Soccer. One, Toronto coming into the league and the atmosphere in the downtown stadium and the cushions on the field in 07, 08, that was a big moment.
Yeah.
But what Tim Leiweke and Tim Bezbachenko built was the start of whatever 3.0, 4.0 you want to talk about that Atlanta followed, that LAFC followed. To like bring in these big time players in their prime from other countries to build a roster top to bottom. That TFC team, I still say, was one of the first teams, and the Galaxy before them were like that, where it wasn't a weak link game. There was not a weak link on the field. It was about winning. And when we talked about the CCL final and what it could mean for LAFC and the runs they went on, Doyle brought up the fact that they beat Tigres America and went and played Chivas. They did not sneak through against another MLS team and beat a Pumas team. That's okay. No offense, Anders. Don't come running through. I know you're from Quebec and you're upset about all of this. Like, this was a team at excellence. And to get back there, they would have to restart. We're back now in 2013. You would need someone to come in and restart. And even from some of the other pieces, Richie Larea, he's a Toronto native. He didn't come through the TFC Academy.
No.
Kamal Miller's the national team starter from Toronto, did not come through the academy. So there's a lot of issues going on that's not just the first team.
Yeah, no, you're dead right. Can we just I have to give some love to Terry Dunfield, though, that is taking over
Shout
as
out, Terry.
intern manager for Toronto FC. I love him. He's a fantastic person. So I hope, like, you always love to see an intern that, former player, Canadian international, that can come in and maybe just give some of these players a little bit of hope, trying to get them all back just mentally focused on to winning ways. And I feel, because I know him personally, he could be this person just to maybe get them to the end of the season and maybe potentially in that 9th position playoff push. I'm not great at math. I need Sasha Kleshtin here for that. But yeah, shout out to him. So I hope he does well.
What's next for Toronto? Obviously, Terry for the time being, interim. I'm going to start throwing out some names just as an exercise.
Well, let's just also, so Bob was the sporting director.
Correct. So this
needs
is a
to-
bigger
So
issue than
Bill
just
Manning
the
is
coach.
above that. So right now, if you were to hire a new coach, that would be Bill Manning's decision to hire that coach. So I think the timeline will become very interesting of like, where is the level of trust and how quickly does something like this happen? Continue.
Throw names out. I mean, that is a very important bit of context here because you hire a head coach, you still do need a sporting director.
Yeah,
Your technical director also is gone because that was Sorber.
Yeah.
So like the structure of the guys building the team, making those decisions, also
the
decimated.
obvious names I think are Robin Fraser, who's employed, but was an assistant for a long time at TFC at Colorado. Phil Neville, because he's available and technically an assistant.
Mhm.
John Herdman has to be on that list, right?
He won't. John Herdman wants to go to 2026 with Canada.
Okay.
There's no way.
Caleb Porter, I think, is an interesting one that's out there. And then Mark Dos Santos becomes an obvious name because he's been an assistant. He is Canadian. He's had a level of success.
What about Jim Curtin at the end of the year?
Oh man!
If you're
Who's the
Toronto,
sporting
you should be
director?
trying.
But that's what I'm saying.
I don't think that would happen. But if you're Toronto,
Would you
should
give
absolutely
him
be
both
trying.
jobs?
If that's what it took to get? But then it goes back to like this isn't a quick fix.
But
Like,
that's also. Can we also just? Is that the right way to move forward in Major League Soccer? Like, wasn't that one of your big issues with this situation?
That Bob had both.
Like,
jobs.
how many guys hold that around the league anymore?
But who's Jim?
Is
what
that a
Jim?
modern way
Who's
of
the GM
organizing
for
your
Jim
sporting
right now?
side in
Ernst
Major League
Tanner,
Soccer?
what for me one of the best
Yeah.
three.
Wouldn't you not bring both of them? If you're Toronto and you're looking at the success,
Again, you try. I don't
Jim Curtin has been coach of the year 3 times,
twice.
and doesn't have a contract.
so that's what I'm saying. At the end of the year,
Negotiating with Ernst Tanner.
More-
It feels
it's more about
odd to me
ownership.
to think that Ernst Tanner would leave and Jim would follow him.
I will say their relationship is very good.
Okay.
From all accounts, from what I
Okay.
But Ernst is not leaving.
But
that
but
job. Ernst
also
is
you
out
would
of
have to
contract as
hire.
well.
You would need to hire Ernst, who would then look. Then it would be his decision. Like, does he want Jim? Maybe he does. Do you have to pay compensation to Philly to get him? Maybe you wouldn't get him now, so you're surviving the rest of the year with the amount of money you've invested in this
Well,
roster.
that's-
Basically,
no,
No,
I
that's
think it's a wash.
unavoidable.
This
Yeah.
year's a wash for
Yeah. It's
Toronto.
over.
It's
Yeah.
done.
You're not going
sucks.
to win MLS Cup
That
this year.
sucks.
Maybe
I
you'll make
think
a
they'll
push
have
for the
Terry until the
playoffs.
end of the year.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter win, lose, draw, and then end of the year they'll be working their magic behind the scenes trying to get the best situation. It doesn't make any sense to rush this.
Yeah.
Considering the position that they're in. I don't think.
boy, if that was the scenario, if you were a union supporter or a union owner or anybody who cared about the union, and you just lost all the guys that could be the replacements to Cincinnati, who are at the top of the shield, and then if you lost those two to an Eastern Conference team again in Toronto, that would just that would
The Ryan
Toronto
Richter
has the
show,
money,
baby,
though.
get hyped.
That's the thing is Toronto has the money to do
Yes.
something like that.
And they and so for people in MLS, Toronto, I think why we bring them up all the time is because, like you said, if you look at jobs available, the ceiling with Toronto could be really high. It's the similar reason why Gonzalo Pineda would go to Seattle or would go to Atlanta. Because if you do well in Atlanta, you can do well in a different way than other MLS teams because Toronto has money. It's a massive city. It's a great market. It's easy to attract players and the fans care. Like you're relevant in the market when you're good. So Toronto's, it's an interesting job. I think Caleb Porter is an interesting name because he's got success historically. He is an outsized personality who I think would be confident in himself to step in because that's like part of the issue
But
here.
if Insigne and Bernadeschi didn't get along well with Bob Bradley, they're not getting along
No.
well with Caleb Porter. It's just
I don't
you know
disagree
who
with
I was
you.
going to say Ravi Keem, but he just went to Tel Aviv, so we won't be seeing him back in Major League Soccer.
How about
but
Andrea Pirlo?
that's the name that I think would make sense. He's
How about I'm just running right now. I'm actually literally on Transfer Market looking
Stop.
at
Are
free
you? Wait a minute.
managers.
trying to get a front office job in
Yeah,
Toronto.
Gennaro Gattuso is free. I'm
I've
just
heard
throwing
of
out
it.
Italians at this point.
Yeah.
Should I just sort by Italian?
I actually think that makes a lot of sense. It's taking you down this road already, so why not continue on,
Lean in.
right? It can't get any worse, right? Oh, sorry. It could get a lot worse. That would make zero sense. Patrick Vieira is an interesting one.
How does it
think
get,
he
by the way, how does it get
interviewed-
worse than this?
We heard that he interviewed before Bob got the job, right? Wasn't Vieira one of the names?
I think he was like one of the at least talked to. I
Connected.
don't
he
So-
was like final 3
yeah,
for
and
that job.
we heard he was national team
Pirlo,
as well.
Pirlo was as well, by the
Yeah.
way. Like
Oh, originally
Yeah.
for Toronto? Yeah. So Vieira is an interesting one. Obviously, success. He obviously, I think, would carry a lot of gravitas into that locker room with some of these bigger name players and all that stuff.
Well, you just
as
touched
well.
on it with Bill Manny. You almost need someone that's bigger than the club to come in to be like, I'm making these decisions. I actually don't even care who you are. Or you need someone that can be able to just man manage players.
Yeah.
Tactics aside, be able to man manage these players because they're on. How long is Insigne's and Bernadeschi's contract? Another 2 years or another year?
I mean, I know Bob, I think, had another 2.5
Yeah.
years on his deal, so you're paying him out on that. I cannot imagine that was inexpensive in MLS managerial terms. Like,
Yeah.
I would imagine that's at the very top of the spectrum. Just buying time for you guys to figure out.
Yeah, no, I'm
Insigne
trying to
and
get
Bernadeschi's deal.
I'm trying to get a load here on this Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it can't be short term. It can't be.
No.
Like, given that are free agent signings, that the amount of money they got.
So Insigne was on a 4-year deal that started on July
He's got
1st,
2
2022, and Bernadeschi's
Jesus.
deal is through 2026.
So those
You
players
got a
aren't
long
going
time
left.
anywhere.
But don't worry, you got a Dominic Diamante on a 2-year deal. Yikes, dude. This roster's
Tough.
rough.
It's tough.
even the ones, and like there's moments where I
don't
they had
feel like
to
the roster's
re-sign.
that bad. Have I been
Yes, it
drinking
is.
I
at
think the
breakfast?
It's that
roster
bad.
is pretty rough, especially in medium long-term sense.
Richie might not be on the
Short-
team.
Yeah,
he's on loan.
Yeah, they're not.
The
They
loan
can't let
expires. Like,
Richie go.
he's already one of the most. No, he is the most expensive right back in the league, and they would need a transfer fee to get him back from Nottingham Forest. Like, where's you're spending all this money on? Even CJ Sapong's contract is not a light one. Like, I don't know where the money is for this. Like, it's just I don't know. Again, Petretta is one of the most expensive left backs in the league. Like Hedges, Rosted, like they've bought a lot of money in
Sean
this
John,
league, and it's just not. I don't know.
Well,
And-
again, that was because of what the expectations were.
Right.
It wasn't a strategic long-term plan. It was a, hey, push all the chips into the middle right now. And if you win big. And if you lose,
And the
you
other
lose big.
The other big problem about the future is sometimes with big signings, for example, Bob Bradley didn't work out with like Andre Horta and stuff. If they're younger, there's going to be sell-on value.
Yeah.
Insigne and Bernadeschi don't have that unless a Saudi Arabian
I was going to
team
say
wants to buy
Saudi
them.
Arabia.
Yeah. Like that's your only option. So you are not only are you going down this path, but you have to convince ownership to just dip into their own pocket to help you do it again.
Do you think Giovinco's sitting in his apartment in Toronto saying, "I told you guys, you should have brought me back on a cheap one"?
I don't know that that's how I would have changed this
Him and
whole
Victor
situation.
Vasquez.
So here's the question.
You're like, Kalen, don't be ever be a sporting
should they just
director."
tear it all down? Should
Yes.
they try to move
Yes.
those guys in that way?
I mean,
it
I don't think
seems-
that.
But you're not moving them.
Yeah, it's not
You're not
viable.
moving
there's only one way to do it, right?
You can buy
Like,
one out. They have a
Well, you
buyout
could-
option of one.
you
Don't
could-
they know?
But they do have a buyout, but that's a
The
lot of
number-
money left
yeah,
on
the
the
number
table,
is-
and they're not like they're not. It's not like they're that bad that it's like we need them
Yeah.
off the roster right now.
I
It's
think
just that like I think you really need to blow it up. I mean, if you can build around those two, you could keep trying it because again, like even unless it's to Saudi Arabia, like even if you transfer them abroad, you're gonna have to hold that contract. Like
Don't do it abroad. I've said this since the Athletic put the piece out. Why, if you're a team in MLS, would you not trade for Bernadeschi if you have a spot?
LA Galaxy,
Does he-
baby.
how many millions of dollars? Like how
Yeah.
many teams pay this?
But you
money?
don't have to pay the transfer fee. You're getting that talent at this price.
to
Or
be fair, neither did
Miami did it with Pozuelo last year. It worked out for them. I know Pozuelo is a different person, but like
But Pozuelo his contract was
Yeah.
expiring. You had an out.
for sure, yeah, you're stuck on
Yeah,
it
you had an
longer
out.
term. There's question marks about the personality, but if you are a team that doesn't spend at that level, this is a way to get a player at that quality level for cheaper than what it would be to go sign
I
him
feel
from
like I'm
Juventus.
keeping both these players in Toronto, Bernadeschi and Insigne, and just trying it with a new manager and seeing. I know, burn it to
Then,
the
like,
ground, but
Cincy-
you count. I just feel like you just need a manager
Yeah.
that can manage these players.
That's probably
They're
the right
good
thing to do
players.
short term as
I-
well. It's
and
like, hey, we put it together. We bet on this. Like, it's only 18 games in, whatever it is. If we take the chips out now, like we could never see the results of it. So
Yeah, just
maybe you let Terry just cook a little bit, see if these
come on,
guys can
Terry, don't let me down.
Let's
get
go,
on the
Terry.
same page. How about Bob Bradley? What's
Go,
next for him?
Terry.
No clue.
Do
I
you
mean,
think he
if
goes to Major League Soccer?
Huh?
Do you think he stays in Major League Soccer?
yeah, I was gonna make a joke that maybe Leeds needs a new manager, but I think that Leeds fans wouldn't laugh very much at that.
How about just
I
to have
wouldn't-
fun with it?
So-
The Fire would be a spot that you could.
Chicago makes a ton
Yeah,
of
they should
sense.
absolutely be.
Yeah. But also, I guess he can't expect to have both roles at this point because of whatever. If I was a
I
team,
just don't think that's like an effective modern way of organizing any team.
so like,
Like it
the-
wasn't that way in LA. Like that.
well,
John
the Revs have
Thornton,
it, but like Kurt Adolfo is a full-time technical director. You need people under you.
Yeah.
Their problem
Bruce,
is
Peter
Sorber was an assistant coach.
Vanny. The Vanny project's not
Well-
working in that way, but there's also way more cooks than just Greg Vanny. But
Yeah.
like Peter, Bruce, who else still has that power? Bob did.
Adrian. Sorry.
No,
didn't mean to
Adrian
bug
doesn't.
you. Yeah, Adrian is not.
Who's above Adrian?
What
on
is
the
his
sporting
title?
side?
Watson.
Watson's
Watson.
above him.
Watson was
Yeah.
his
Technically.
assistant.
No, he is.
Yeah, but Watson was his assistant. Like,
Yeah.
But Adrian doesn't have both roles.
Interesting.
Okay. Trying to imagine how that works, though. You don't think?
He doesn't have both roles.
Sure, but the influence side.
Well, what manager doesn't have an influence of what players they want to sign?
Sure, but who has bigger influence? I guess that's what I'm asking you.
Mark Watson is that role.
Okay.
Adrian Heath does not have that role.
Yeah, his title is head coach.
So
There you go.
there you go.
Director,
almost like
director and
Kayla-
player person.
It's almost like I'm married into the
I know,
family.
I know. I guess-
exactly what's going on.
Kalen's like, I'm the sporting director.
And I guess I have a little bit of a struggle with that when Mark was his assistant. and then
struggle away,
took
but
that
that's how
job.
it works though. You keep people close. It happens all the this is what I don't understand. It happens all the time in European football. You keep people that are close to you that have the same vision of what you want to build as a club. So if assistant coach, not an assistant coach, but you know exactly what Adrian Heath is looking for. So if it's Mark Watson knows the player type that Adrian's looking for. So he's not going to go out and be like, yeah, this guy, because he knows exactly what Adrian's probably going to say.
Right. I guess Mark's not Adrian's boss. Right. So when they walk into a room, whose vision is the one? Adrian's. That's the one that built the club.
Well, it's like John Thorrington and Bob Bradley. You're right. Bob Bradley had a ton of buy-in, but Thorrington had a long-term view of the club where when Bob left, it was still on that track because Thorrington was the one making those decisions.
Right.
Ernst Tanner and Jim Curtin. Jim Curtin wants Corey Burke on the bench.
Right.
But
What
Ernst
sporting
Tanner's
director-
making his
Is the sporting director the head coach's boss?
normally.
Yes.
No, not normally. Yes, 100%.
To say that one guy is going to be your manager and the head of your soccer operations, it's not effective. It doesn't account for issues like this where you have problems at the first team level you have to make changes on.
So can I just throw out,
wouldn't do it.
if I was a federation below, really like not the 17 teams in Europe and Brazil and Argentina, I would look at Bob Bradley. His success with Egypt, his success with the U.S. I don't know that he wants to be an international manager, but like if I was a Costa Rica or a Honduras who was trying to like fix things and sort of like solidify things, this is a guy who's had success at that level. I don't know if it
And he's
interests
well organized, yeah.
him. Yeah, I don't know if it interests him, but obviously I think when you look at where Egypt went under him and like Mo Salah being brought into the team probably before
Developed
he was
a lot
ready,
of talent.
getting him to Basel. Yeah, he did a really good job there. So that would be interesting. If I was an MLS team that wasn't sure about my manager, I would be calling Bob and seeing what I could do.
What about the Galaxy? And not to say that what's going to happen there, but it is sort of chaotic just for fun on the opposite side of the rivalry in El Trafico. He knows Will Kuntz from LA.
I think that's a
They
worse
need
roster
sort
than
of a-
Toronto.
I
So-
don't disagree
But they
with that.
have 2 DP spots coming open in the winter, so there's that.
But are they allowed to use them though? Because
Yeah, well, they can't use them now.
Yeah.
Well, like, and it's Costa and Chicharito are holding them now,
Yeah,
but
and-
both of those contracts are up in the winter.
And look,
So
Greg Vanny is there.
Well,
He's
you have
trying to turn
resign
it
Costa.
around. We're just
He's a
throwing
difference
out
maker. You're just making
pipe
stuff
dreams
up.
here to see
I-
what might
we're just having clickbait right now.
I guess the point is, I would say, is I still think Bob Bradley's a good manager. I still think he can be effective in Major League Soccer. If I was an MLS team with an opening, or I thought I was going to have an opening, I would reach out and talk to him. I don't think this and the end of LAFC proves that Bob Bradley cannot manage in this league anymore. Then you go and look at Bruce Arena coming back and being successful. Like, I don't think there's proof that there's an age range or whatever that matters in this whole thing. So if I was a part of an MLS club, would think Bob Bradley could help my team.
All right, let's put a bow on this one. But we will unwrap that present surely as more news comes out from Toronto and changes are
What a
either made or
club.
not made.
What a time to be alive.
Let us know, Toronto fans, what you think, to get at us. Extra time at MLSsoccer.com. I always put out the mailbag thread every Monday and Wednesday. So we'll keep it going if you want us to on Wednesday. Best thing you saw from MatchDay 21. We finally got there. Was a fun, interesting weekend. Tom, get us started.
I think I was really excited by Columbus's starting lineup that they went with like Darlington Nagbe in central midfield and then everybody else attacking forward with Matan and Christian Ramirez and Lucas Del Rayan and Cucho and then the wingbacks flying forward at all times. Like they looked at who Nashville didn't have with their international call-ups and they're home and just said, all right, screw it. We're going to defend with 3. By the way, no center backs again playing in the back 3 and Darlington
that's
Nagbe
wild.
holding in front of them. And it was just a really fun, wide open kind of attack by Columbus and it paid off with a 2-0 win.
Christian Ramirez just keeps rolling, man. What a signing that was in
It's
the
awesome.
offseason for the crew.
Mhm.
Really good signing.
I'm so happy he's back in Major League
I am
Soccer.
too.
Yeah.
He was
That
lost.
was such a random
He was lost. He was too far in Scotland.
Yeah.
We just didn't get the touch-ins that we need. Hey, So Rude hit us up, and I've been wondering about this too. Still waiting for someone to bring up Eloy Room, the forgotten man in Columbus. Bizarre that someone with such a huge cap hit and who was the original presumed number 1 has been frozen out, and no one cares to talk about it.
It's curious. I'm not sure. I mean, Patrick Schulte's come in and I guess as of now gotten the job. I kept assuming that Eloy Room was still hurt, but then he was playing with Curacao. His contract's up at the end of the season. There's been rumblings that maybe some Dutch clubs are looking into him. Like, I don't know. If something agreeable came, like again, if he's not playing, then you're looking to move on from that contract hit. But again, they have a club option in the winter, so I don't know. Keep an eye on, I guess, Eloy Room
I
this
think-
summer.
It was a
I
knee
think-
injury, by the way, just to be clear. He's been
Yeah.
sort of struggling with that throughout the year.
I think the reason it hasn't come up is 2 things. One is because historically, if you can get a domestic generation Adidas goalkeeper, like you do that, it's going to help your roster long term. It's what Cincinnati did when they leaned into Roman Tunnel last year, where we all thought Alec Kahn would come back and be the starter at some point. He didn't. Alex Bono in Toronto as
I
well.
was just going to say,
There you go.
rewind it back to Bono.
It helps your roster long term. The other reason it hasn't come up that much is because there's no one in MLS right now that would trade for him. I think it would be more of a conversation if it was like, there's these 5 clubs that need goalkeepers. He's in the league. The only one I can think of is SKC, and he's on too much money, I think, to go there and make it make sense. So that's why it's kind of just quietly happened. And as Tom said, his contract's up. So if you're Columbus and you believe in Schulte, like, you keep playing him because that's your future. And if you can figure something out to get room off, but they're probably not really going to replace that money this year in a big way. So it doesn't really matter.
I'm going to go with a typical Wiebe list for best things I saw, and you guys can jump in here.
What's a typical? Oh, like
it's just
long.
Yeah, it's
Just
just
naming
We need
any
more
topic,
coffee.
any topic that you would like to jump in on. You just jump
Love
right in.
it. Go
so
on,
I'm going to start
Wiebe.
with Ryan Gauld at left wing back. Speaking of tactical shifts and going all attacking, Vanni Sartini threw caution to the wind, saw that Ilya Sanchez and Maldonado were likely to start at center back for LAFC, and they hadn't won a road game, so why not go for it? He went for it. I have not seen Gauld at that sort of, I'm calling it a left wing back, but I'm not
Mostly
sure
a
he did
winger.
much.
Mostly a wing.
back
Like, even if you look at the
aspect
heat
of it.
map, like,
Yeah, I mean, he's way up there.
I haven't
It's like
heard
a
a heat map in a
3-1-4-2, I think.
I love a
from
good
Vanni.
heat
Yeah, that feels like a throwback.
So,
That is
The
a-
Xavi and yesterday's. Look at the heat map. And it's all a goat,
So Caps' first away win comes in LA against LAFC.
as expected.
Huge victory for them, and I thought the tweaks worked. Vanni Sartini had this quote from afterwards on Ryan Gauld. Some other guys are more flashy. I call Ryan the working class DP, and being a far left guy, I'm very happy to have a working class DP.
Who
God
said
bless Vanni Sartini.
Vanni Sartini.
Yeah.
Where's Vanni Sartini originally from?
Italy.
And he works in Canada?
Yeah.
It's an interesting little connection there.
Over
Don't
to
do this.
Toronto.
Don't do this to Caps.
Just
Don't do
kidding,
this.
Vancouver.
Don't do this to
I'm
Caps
just kidding. I would
supporters. That's
never
not
think
right.
that would happen.
Here's a question. What's the ceiling for this Whitecaps team after their big win in LA? That comes from Andrew Cohen. I've been a little disappointed by Vancouver because
What?
I like the way that they play, but the results haven't been there. They were sitting in 9th coming into
Get
this.
out of here.
they are in.
They are
match
in
day.
ninth.
They're still in 9th?
Yeah.
Yeah, look,
That's how
XG
soccer
loves
works.
them. Watching them, I love to watch them. The results have not yet been in the league what you would hope for. So what's the ceiling?
Are you asking about standings or trophy potential?
Let's do standings because
I think the
MLS
standing-
Cup, like,
I think the
playoffs,
standings
whatever.
are like 6 to 9. Like, I just
Yeah, I
think
don't
if,
disagree with that.
if Cordova is your DP and, like I've already said,
Cordova's
a few
still
times,
on 0-0.
I think
Yeah.
so. Missed a couple good chances though, so getting dangerous. I like Gauld's incredible. Kubas, I think, is elite.
Yep.
I think they're back 5 to 8, and
Gressel,
Takaoka.
Gresselmania.
Gressel's
he's been
phenomenal. Yeah,
fantastic.
Missing him and winning on the road was
If they can play consistent and they can, I think, clean things up defensively, which I think a lot of that has been just moving personnel because of internationals and injuries and Canadian Championship and stuff like
Yeah.
that, they should solidly be in the conversation of like being a 4 or 5 seed. But I would be surprised if they broke through that.
Okay.
Does anyone disagree with me?
I don't
I mean,
disagree with the stand. Go on, Tom.
They're,
sorry.
they're 2 points behind. Like, it's also jumbled right now that we could be back here in a week and a half and be like, wow, Vancouver's in 3rd. How about that? Like, it's
Yeah.
just, I don't know.
But,
it's
but
too
the
difficult to
5
hold
week
it together.
method, will they be after 5?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's
yeah.
why it's just tough to talk about because
That's
like
the half-life on MLS takes, Tom.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
they're Sporting, Seattle, Austin, Galaxy, and San Jose, and
Yeah,
4 of those games at home, where they've been good.
There we go.
So 5 weeks time. Well, who told me the 5 weeks time in Major League
made that
Soccer?
up.
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
made that up.
Well, I like
That was like I think that was a situation where I want to say I had a terrible take and I was just like, you can't count that.
I think it was the Rapid stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But also, it's like
Ooh.
straight up, LAFC was in a CCL final and first in the West.
Then had a 6-game winless run and now are back.
I have
Well,
belief in
except losing at
Vancouver,
home.
baby. I'm looking at Sporting Kansas City away, maybe get a point. Then they play Seattle at home. Sorry, Anders, but I think Vancouver at home, they'll take that. Austin at home, they'll take that. Galaxy, they'll take that. And then San Jose will be a tricky one.
So the thing I'm actually excited about with Vancouver is Leagues Cup because they've won 2 Canadian championships,
Yep.
but that's a different type of challenge. And they made a CCL run, sort of.
Should be
In
said,
theor-
smacked by this LAFC
Yeah.
team in that run.
In
6-0
theory,
out.
they should be a good knockout team. Like, play 5 in the back, Takayoko's strong,
Yeah.
Kubas is strong, and then, especially at home, they get their transitional moments, they're aggressive. So in theory, they should be. The part that's tough with them is who's going to finish the chances that you can guarantee.
Mhm.
And when you look at the playoffs in Major League Soccer and you look at teams that have won, a Rui Diaz, a Carranza, a Vela, they normally pop up when the game's against you in a big moment. So I like the idea of Vancouver in knockout games, but I want to
Wow.
see it at that level.
Downgrading
I think-
Ryan Gauld.
I think it was
What?
BWP
Downgrading,
on.
saying he's not a difference maker.
No, I think BWP nailed it. He said he's a difference maker, but it's one of those like random difference makers where he pops up out of like, I know this isn't going to make sense, so let's just don't take it. This isn't BWP saying this, quote unquote. This is Kalen Kyle jumbling things like not sleeping 2 a.m. on Saturday. But he said if he can start getting consistent like a Julian Carranza, because he pops up and he gets those dirty goals, kind of like, no disrespect, like BWP did. Like it's not those like bicycle
Individual
kicks.
efforts.
Yeah. And it's like a player that doesn't give up. But they said it, if they can get one more attacking piece to this Vancouver side, it can be a side that can go far in the playoffs because you almost underestimate them because they don't have those big star names on their rosters like a Julian Carranza, like a Denny Bouanga that can be those game winners for you, which excites me because it's almost like a dark horse going into a game where you kind of take them for granted.
They're fun to root for. What I would
They're
say,
fun to watch.
Yes.
They're so
Yes,
fun to watch.
What I would say is that was what Sergio Cordova.
Yeah, but
needed
sometimes
to
it
be,
doesn't
right?
hit. Sometimes
I
it
know,
doesn't
I
hit.
know, but and that's the disappointment. Like that's the spot, right?
I'm
Like,
sorry. He was in this league last year and was not that player. So the assumption
agree.
he was going to be that
No,
guy.
I'm saying even just a secondary goal scorer of any kind because they don't have a primary one. Respect to Brian White. He is their primary. He's going to get
Sure.
chances. They create the chances. He's not efficient in the way that, again, going even beat it. Let's say
he's got
BWP.
7
Don't
goals.
disrespect New
I
Jersey
love
Mario White.
I love
Mario
Brian
Gomez.
White. I love Brian White. But what if my thing is like, what if Sergio? It's not like what we expected of him. It's like what they should have signed.
Yeah, right.
Probably not
Yeah.
Sergio Cordova. What I'll say about Ryan Gauld, the reason he looks so good, goal and 2 assists, is because he's not being asked to do those things in this game. He's being asked to run into space on the left-hand side, be the crosser of the ball that we know he is, and work with more open space than being in congested midfields.
Brian White has 10 goals in all competition. 7 goals in
Yeah,
league,
no,
2 in the CONCACAF, and then
This is
1
not
in the
Brian White.
Canadian.
It's a Sergio Cordova issue in my
Okay,
opinion,
okay,
not a
okay.
Brian White issue.
Well, the thing is, they don't have the flexibility to go out and get another DP forward. Like it has to be Cordova, or there has to be another jump from Pedro Vite, or like again, you maybe
Scored for Ecuador.
Yeah, and like he has a ton of talent, but again, the U22 initiative, it's for younger players. It's not going to have that consistency. If he takes another level, and then maybe you can play Gauld wide more, and Pedro Vite is the kind of like your number 10. That's the idea. But again, it's all internal for me right now. Like what their big summer needs are re-signing Ranko Veselinovic, whose contract is up at the end of the season, and trying to convince Julian Gressel to stay, which they've been trying to do since they signed him. And like Gressel, when they traded for him, Gressel's contract is up at the end of the season.
Do you think he will?
I don't know. I honestly, I'm not sure. I think
Come
you
on,
can hear
Tom,
the
give us your
pessimism
insight.
in my voice.
Fabian Herber is
I'm a-
break the news. Get us the reports,
Yeah.
Fabian.
This
But so-
podcast is on top of this one.
But my overarching point there is that their summer needs are just trying to hold on to what they got. So
Yeah,
they
gotcha.
they either need Cordova to look like that guy or Pedro Vite to take another.
Well, and
Yeah.
the behind the Cordova signing was, and I say this all the time, goals cost money. It's like the one position in MLS where you can, and sometimes it fails, but you can look at players and say, here's X million and this is how many goals and how consistent they are. Cordova's on the lower end of that because that's what Vancouver was spending in this offseason.
And they were
So,
trying
like,
to do the proven MLS.
yeah,
quad.
and but
in the
it was,
sense of,
but
in
it
the
was
sense of-
proven.
Well, yeah,
It was
in the
proven
sense
at
of like
this level.
10 being the ceiling, probably of where he would be at.
And
Anyway,
so, and when you talk about Gauld, like he is not, I think where we were trying to get to was he doesn't control games.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a Nico Lodero does,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
like what Lucho's been doing. And so there's a ceiling to, if you can't dictate the way a game is played in every single match, there can be a ceiling to what you do unless you dictate it against the ball,
Yeah.
which RSL did 2 years ago and went to a Western Conference Finals. So it's possible. We just have to see it happen for Vancouver.
speaking of guys who dictate the game, Emilio Reynoso is back. The Ray has returned.
Get in, baby.
He scored the King in his debut. Minnesota up 2-0. Couldn't hold on to that lead in Salt Lake. Justin Glad salvaged what I'm calling the VAR game.
Well, not his
for
debut, his
RSL.
first start.
Well, yeah, correct.
First start.
His first start. Yep. But good to see him back. That was wonderful. That was one of the best things I saw. Justin Glad's finish from a center back, his third of the year, one of the best things I saw as well. Austin's big Copa Tejas week. 2 wins against Dallas and Houston have them atop the Copa Tejas standings with a win or draw at Dallas later on this summer.
Who are you more excited to see back, Driussi or Reynoso?
Can I ask you something
These are
about
both
Reynoso as
There's
well?
so much
Reynoso.
love here for
Reynoso.
both of them.
Reynoso, I love Driussi as well, and Austin fans will take me to task for this one. But Reynoso is just so singularly special on the ball, whereas I think Driussi is special finishing more than Reynoso is just as like
Had
as
the
a,
assist on the first goal.
If you're Minnesota, though, what do you
That's
do
tough.
with that situation?
I already said I would recoup his value and sell him in the offseason. because I don't know that you take the risk to go through this again.
But then when you see him play on the weekend,
Yeah,
you're
it gets
just like-
hard. Yeah.
And then they've been linked with like a couple big strikers overseas where I know they've been linked with strikers before that have kind of flopped. Well, have flopped, let's be honest. It's a tough one, isn't it? Where you're like,
Yeah, no, it is. How do you say no when he's so special? I don't know. He's got a season.
it's like
to
when your
prove it, I
kids are
think.
bad and then they give you that look of like, they do something cute and you're like, yeah, what do you
I
want?
still love you.
What do
I
you
still love
want? Fine.
Speaking of the kids, well, he's not a kid anymore. He used to be. I remember when he was in Seattle. What's up, Anders? Sam Adeniran. He was on loan in San Antonio. St. Louis had loaned out the young striker, and when I say young, he's 24, so that feels young to me, but in soccer terms, not as young. Had never scored an MLS goal before. I believe I'm correct in saying that. He gets on a plane, flies to San Jose, and scores 2 goals in a 2-1 win for St. Louis without either DP, obviously still with the quad injuries, to give the Quakes their first home loss of the season. And now St. Louis are back atop the West, and they're coming for me because I said that we need to recalibrate expectations for them. So what's up, Yerba Coffee on Twitter? Quote, is it time to recalibrate the recalibrated expectations of St. Louis City after a good road win with a fresh rotated squad? And then Daniel said, I remember last week we needed to recalibrate. They really latched on to recalibrate expectations for City. While someone mentioned San Jose as a team on the rise, would love to hear how this match affected that assessment.
I hope they lock in on rotated now. That was
Rotated?
a good one.
Missed that.
I love that the team let him take.
Take.
Jesus,
After
Caitlin.
recalibrated and rotated.
You know, Anders, the water
We're
is
Elmer
like
fudding
not
our
hitting.
way
I
through
need an
this.
espresso.
Yeah. Mhm.
That they let
Yeah, that
him
was
take the
interesting.
PK though. I thought it was class. Like literally so
Who
class.
else
But
is gonna take the PK?
But I'm
to
just
be
saying.
fair?
But it just showed me like as a team though. Like I don't know. I love it. I love to see it. I'm like a team person.
Yeah,
You know?
for a double on the road.
Double on
what
the
a
road,
moment
just getting on.
for
Okay,
Sam.
whatever.
It was
Everyone,
beautiful.
everyone's
It
like,
was
shut up with
awesome.
your take.
By the way, the week is the East. Boy, we're struggling here. Let's just reset. Deep breath, everyone. The West is weak. Can I just say that?
Yeah. The West is
Super
more,
weak.
it's actually more fun to watch, I think, on weekends because it's chaotic. And I actually don't think a lot of these teams are great defensively, but there have been a ton of goals where the East is stronger, but more established. And so like Miami's not going to go to Philly and win, but Vancouver goes to LAFC and wins.
Or Chicago Fire go to
Yeah.
Kansas City and win, and also win at Portland
Bang.
midweek. I know those are the
Domino.
best teams in the league. Shout out to Chicago Fire hooking me up with the Brian Gutierrez jersey.
Who did you have to ask for that?
Jamie Chin, PR.
Thanks, Jamie,
Looked it
for
up.
ours.
Looked it up.
Appreciate
Yep.
that.
The East is now 27-14.
Got Guti on the back?
I got Gutierrez on the back.
Come
yeah.
on, Jamie.
Yeah, of course.
Come on. I don't get the homegrown?
Let's
Did we
go.
not use this airtime to be asking for jerseys? What,
Sorry.
Let's let him
Yeah.
enjoy the jersey.
No,
The
because he
East-
enjoys
I
27
have
jerseys.
well, I got to rotate a new one in every show. The East is now 27-14 and 13 against the West this year.
Makes sense.
Has that changed? Because I always thought the
They are
like
smacking them.
back in the day it was like the West that was harder than the East.
Yeah, there have been phases where the West was better and for stretches, and then I think there's
It's
been
like-
times where it's the East as well. It goes
Back to
and
flip-flops.
forth, but
It's
I think
pretty
one thing
clear
is
this year.
Nashville moving helped the East.
What happens next year? Who moves for you?
I would move Wiebe.
Back to the Midwest.
Yeah, I'm moving to Kansas City.
No,
You said
New Jersey
Minnesota,
drafted
didn't
him.
you?
New
Well, that's
Jersey
fair.
drafted
I
him.
already, but that's part of it. The East is better this year. I moved from the West. to the
Wow.
East, right?
You think the bottom fell out for KC because of you?
Well, you never know. Well, it wasn't there last year either. So,
Yeah.
let's go.
Didn't you
Kaylin.
go to that CCL game when they lost like 7-1?
I also went to the Leagues Cup game when they just got annihilated.
Oh, maybe that's
dude.
what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Kaylin, what is the best thing you saw on Matchday 21?
Young kids doing well in Major League Soccer. Diego Luna, Jack McGlynn, Daniel Edelman, Vargas, Owen Wolf, Caleb Wiley. I love to see this because,
It's like the whole U20 team.
yeah, but this is why it's so important to me because you saw. Get out of here with that.
I'm
I was
on
like, stop
Anders.
shaking your head at me.
No, no.
I went
can't even hear you.
I went to U20 Women's World Cups went back in the day, and you don't realize how much it preps you for professional, but also preps you for the senior team. And I think a lot of coaches, was it Chicago, who didn't release their players?
Yeah.
Chicago.
Chicago didn't
Gutierrez
really-
here on my back.
Yeah, didn't release a player like Brian Gutierrez to go to that U20 tournament where, okay, yes, you get a lot of experience playing in Major League Soccer, the 90 minutes he started. I understand that. But then you go to the U20 tournament, you get into the knockout phase, you go into the round robins, you go, 3 games, no goals scored against. That just builds confidence on that international phase where you go to Argentina in a difficult place to go and play, difficult stadiums. It wasn't in the best cities, and they did that on purpose, which I love that because it builds soccer cultures. It builds, that soccer IQ. And I'm not taking that away from America because I'll say it's starting to change that narrative here in North America. I mean, I grew up in Canada watching hockey. Wayne Gretzky was my idol until I realized, I want to be a professional soccer player. I don't have to skate around in freezing ice cold arenas, right? So I just feel like for these kids, it's given them confidence since coming back to Major League Soccer where they're not scared to play against, Cucho Hernandez. They're not scared to play against David Villa. He's not even playing anymore. But like these top players where they're just like, I did it in Argentina. I did well at the U20 World Cup. I have this confidence. I want to make the first team now. And I love to see it. I think it adds so much. And I just think it's only builds the full team, the full U.S. men's national team to more success down the road in the World Cups, in the quarterfinals, the semifinals.
I want to give a shout out to Daniel Edelman within all that. Scored his first goal of the year for the Red Bulls, and the Red Bulls smacked up Atlanta United. So I don't think we weren't going to mention that. It was a tough performance from the Five Stripes. Dave, this is the time of the show, far too many minutes in, for you to recap the MLS Next action and Stars of the Future that you saw over the last week.
I just think, to Kaylin's point about these players, that U20 level, like I have said this a lot, it's not a golden generation. It's a pathway that's been built. And for me, I've now, over the last 4 months, done Generation Adidas Cup, MLS Flex, and now MLS Next Cup. And like the future is still bright. And that's the experience that I had. And you go down and it's a lot about like working around these clubs where they've just added resources. And resources isn't just cleats and fields. It's athletic trainers. It's video scouting. It's like helping players reach their peak. It's supporting players. And then you sit at a U15 final and Dennis Hamlet's next to you watching his team play. And Kurt Analfo's at the U19 final watching his team play. And it's the connection and the cohesion for some of these clubs that it matters. I mean, Jack Paniatu had the winner for the U19 Revs last year. Now he plays in MLS. Now the Revs go and win the U19s again. Peyton Miller, they're converting him to a left back. He scores an unbelievable goal. Youth national team, like that's the next step, but the step's not that far. And so it's just exciting to continue to see the progress. I've said this a few times. You come back from these tournaments and the hope is you add more clubs to the list of the Phillies and Red Bulls and Dallases that do it well. I think the Revs have firmly put themselves in that convo. Seattle did so. Columbus, I think, is there. Orlando, I think, has taken great strides over the last few years. I really like the work Cincinnati's doing as well. You need everyone. If you want to win World Cups and win championship and have this league be a top whatever, you need the best players. And one way to do it is to produce them. And another way is to acquire them. I think both need to happen at the same time. And so I came away again from a week of watching talent and feeling that way. And with MLS Next, what's fun is it's not just MLS clubs. It is the entire structure of Next. And so you watch some of these great clubs like a Weston and an FC Delco and a Sockers and Strikers that I grew up playing against. And you see now their players are closer to that professional rank and the international rank because they can prove, like what Kaylin said, when Diego Luna goes to the U20 World Cup and does it against Uruguay, now the whole world says, well, this guy's at that level. Well, it's the same when these players come back and then they play against an FC Delco and a Weston, and the Weston players are at their level. Because now people look at it and say, well, he can play at this level. Let's bring him in. And, Benjamin Kremoski 2 years ago did it for Weston, won a title. Now he starts for Inter Miami. He might play next to Messi. He's an Argentine U17 international. That was all possible before, but it was piecemeal of like who was at which game, who happened to wander across you. Is your dad's friend some dude in England and now Santiago Munez plays for Newcastle? That's a goal reference. That's not a real story. But I had to throw that in there. That's not the case anymore. These players get to be seen. They are in the system. They're in the pool. They're in the platform. And they get to be connected at a younger age if they want it. And still, you go to a final and kids are going to go to Maryland and Stanford and Michigan. And that's great. Like, that's still part of the pipeline and the pathway. But it's just exciting to be around it and see it continue.
Who's the best player you saw, or the player that excited you the most?
That's a tough question. I don't know that there was one standout this time. I've said a couple times there's a kid at LAFC, DeCarlo Guerra, who is like one of the best 15-year-old soccer players I've ever seen. There was a few players on the Red Bulls U15s. I think Julian Hall already connected with like a Dortmund and Adri Mehmeti, their center mid, who's 14 years old. And you talk about Tyler Adams and Daniel Edelman and Sean Davis and like producing players at that position in that system. I think he's as good, probably behind Tyler of anyone I've seen come through. So that's like a really exciting piece as well. And this kid, Peyton Miller, which one of the things I love about this setup now is Peyton Miller was a forward, and the Revs academy and first team staff went to him and said, we think your future's probably at fullback. And you think about what DeJuan Jones and Brandon Bai have had to learn later in their lives. This kid's learning it at 16. Yeah. And so at 19, he will be closer than Jones and Bai were at 24, and he can have 11 or 12 years of being a great fullback. And so I think that stuff's really exciting.
It literally gives me goosebumps because I had to play with boys growing up, and like that was my pathway. I had to move away from home to Vancouver to go in the Vancouver Whitecaps Academy because that was the only girls program in all of the country. And then I worked for Inter Miami for 3 years in their inaugural season. And I'd go in to like do my interviews with, you know, Gonzalo Higuain, and the academy players would be having lunch next to him, asking him questions of like, what's the proper nutrition? What's the proper recovery? How is it playing in Europe? And I'm like, I don't think you kids realize how freaking lucky you are that this is literally accessible to you, and you are in a $1 billion training facility. I'm making up numbers now because I actually don't know how much the Inter Miami training facility is, but like you don't, it's not far off, but like you don't know how lucky these kids have it now that there is such a different pathway than there was before. And it's like, it's only going to make North American soccer better. And like, we're already seeing Messi coming to Major League Soccer, choosing to come to Major League Soccer. There's going to be so many other top European talent that are going to choose to come here, and Americans that were developed here that want to stay here because it's going to be, you know, one of those leagues that everyone wants to play in.
I thought, by the way, Jim Curtin's quote this weekend, did you see after the Philly game, Paxton and Mark came back, and he said, I tell them they have to end their careers with Philly. And we saw it sort of for Josie and Michael Bradley, right? They went to Europe, then they came back and won with TFC. But how cool will it be? And we're not that far away because this system has now been started for the last 5 to 8 years of like these guys coming back as big time signings to the clubs that they grew up in, to their hometowns. Like that's going to be special. I think that's going to be a really cool sort of full circle moment. And I think that's going to be a moment where we talk about the 2.0s and 3.0s. I think that's going to be one when Weston McKennie goes to Dallas at 31 to finish his career and win an MLS Cup, or Tyler Adams does so with Red Bulls. Like that's going to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things about caring about North American soccer is for a long time, we were always so focused on the future.
Yeah.
It was like, it's going to get better. Imagine what it can be, what it will be. We'll put this work in. We'll do all this, you know, academy and, you know, club building, and the supporters culture will blossom. And one of the most fun things for me is covering it, talking about it, living in it right now, where it's not just the future anymore. The future feels so bright and on top of us as we have Club World Cups come, and obviously we'll host the World Cup and everything else, but the present is starting to now look like what we wanted that future to look like. You know, not fully formed, not where it will be, because of course there's more development to do, we know that, but to see pathways out of academies of pro-ready players, not just trickling, not just one or two, not like a couple guys we throw on to 24 under 24, to have 22 under 22 be almost impossible to choose, and know that there are hundreds of prospects in that 15 to 18 level that have the opportunity to make jumps and be special players, to be Paxton Aronsons, or to be, you know, whoever it is on whatever spectrum that they're on. That's so exciting and fulfilling, and it's just starting.
And there's more than 22, which is why we keep getting it wrong, which I love now. Like we get it wrong because there's more than 22 that get there. The last piece I'd add is the structure of the sport. There's just being more jobs. It is coaches, it's scouts, it's athletic trainers. Like Terry Dunfield has coached the youth level for Toronto for years. Now he gets that opportunity. Now that's not the point, but like Luchi Gonzalez came through the same pathway.
But they're
Jim
prepared
Curtin,
for that.
same came.
Yep.
They have jobs to stay in the sport if they want to.
Jason DeVos as well. Now he's interim secretary for
not an easy job, but he's still on the sport if he chooses to be.
With the news breaking
but
right
also
now.
You're within the club and understanding what that
Yeah.
larger culture is and how it all works together. And then it's a natural move to start to elevate some of those guys.
So Kevin Kratz won with the U16s for
mhm.
Atlanta. Brad Knighton won the U19s
Free kick
with the Revs.
Kevin Kratz.
He told the team, I think at halftime of their semi, he said one of the last games he ever played was at FC Dallas. He lost 3-2. So he needed them to win so they could get back to that building and get that taste of defeat out of his thoughts. And so then they came back, they won. Ashton Gordon, Rocket Rituria, two of the stars.
Wait,
on
even
that.
Say that again. Rocket Rituria?
Yeah.
Oh,
Filipino
what a
American
name.
legend.
Even
Hell
someone
yeah.
like Federico Higuain that was so good in Major League Soccer now with the MLS Next team in Miami.
Javi Mo was
Yeah.
coaching
Yeah.
at that level too.
I love, and he's such a good human, but like even a better coach. Like those are one of the players where you'd go in and he was like talking to the youth players of like, when you receive the ball, you need to receive it on this foot, not this foot. And I'm like, you've literally just finished a first team training session and you're watching this like the second team right now. Like I love to see things like that because it only makes, like if I'm a young player and I had a senior player come talk to me, I'd be like, first, holy crap. I was going to swear. So Anders, you don't have to beat me out. And then
We've had a
second,
number of
like
beeps lately.
it's only going to make me better. Like maybe not to their potential of Major League Soccer, but like I could be the next Federico Higuain in Major League Soccer.
So Schelotto's son started and won for the Galaxy as a center midfielder, defensive, not attacking, but still. And Santi Ferreira actually played for FC Dallas as well, Jesus Younger's brother. Name of the tournament, though, Harbor Miller.
Harbor
one.
Miller.
Unreal name. My guy Barbs.
I'm going with Rocket personally.
Yeah, Rocket's a good one, but Harbor for the LA Galaxy.
It's a Rocket from Rocket.
And he
Need a
won
goal for
MVP at his age group.
Thank God you're not on goal calls.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's keep it going. One question for you guys, and then we'll go to Tom's transfer opus. You can go to The Athletic to read that one. He has all 29 teams and what he knows summed up. Russell McMurray hit us up and said, are you concerned about what happened at FC Cincinnati this weekend, 3-0 loss to DC, or is this a one-off bad performance combined with international call-ups and DC being effective?
I'm not worried at all.
No.
Not even a little bit.
Second loss of the season, and Cincinnati would be like, should we be worried? Like, what a new world.
No.
They started
DC was
Kini
good, though.
Ordonez and Baji up top.
Yeah.
They started, like, that wasn't exactly ideal for them.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Big
DC
time
was
And
good.
give credit to DC.
Yeah.
They were good.
Yeah.
They're very good on the night.
Okay, let's get into Tom's opus.
Also, Miazga was bad for the national team, so maybe he'll be back sooner.
Who will make the biggest move this summer, Tom? Make a prediction for us. An educated prediction.
Yeah. It's tough because I would have said FC Cincinnati.
I was about to ask, is Bupenza it?
It
Yeah.
would, like I don't know if there's going to be a fee over $7 million for an incoming player, maybe, but like again,
Luanga-ass signing.
two weeks ago I would have said Cincinnati, and then
We've
I might
already
have said
hashed that.
RSL, but obviously they've already did it too. So it's just one of these teams with a DP. I think I'm going to pivot and say LAFC because I think that they have the biggest like spending power of the teams with DPs left.
Do you think they're going to sign a Buanga level player, or is it like a young DP and see what happens type guy?
I don't know because they do have enough young talent. Like Stipe Biuk was a $5 million signing. Like Mateusz Bogusz,
Bogusz,
he's
yeah.
not like as young as Biuk is, but it's a younger signing. So I don't know. Like I think that we were surprised when they signed Denny Buanga last year. Like, we kept assuming it was just going to be young DP because of the cap machinations. So yeah, I don't think. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do. Is kind of my
Given last summer's movements from LAFC, I think there is
Where
literally
it ended up being
nothing.
Christian Teo.
Yeah,
as the
nothing that
DP
they could
never
do that
played.
could possibly surprise me.
It'll
Yeah.
be Sergio Aguero.
But it is interesting because, right, Vela's deal comes up at the end of this year, right? He
Yep.
signed a 1.5-year deal in the middle
Yep.
of last year. You start to have some DP question marks there. So I wouldn't just be like, hey, this is our one spot.
But
There will be
Buanga's-
another one potentially opening down the line.
Buanga's your replacement of like he's the guy the team's built around now, right?
Could be.
Maybe.
Could be. Unless
I mean,
you
I
go
think
sign-
he's good enough.
I agree,
But
Chris.
if you're LAFC, why would you stop there? Why wouldn't you be like,
Yeah, no.
let's go get another guy to like an equal? for
Griezmann
him?
wants to come to MLS after the Euros next summer.
I would love to see Griezmann
If
at
I
LAFC.
see
Stop.
Him and Vela. are
another
very close.
Antoine Griezmann quote about him being interested in coming to MLS. It's been 5 years now.
He
He rides the subway, Dave. I
Yeah,
thought you'd
for
respect
sure.
that.
Huge basketball fan. Maybe
I
he'll
love
go to
him.
the San Antonio Spurs.
I love him. He was one of my favorite players in Qatar.
Yeah, he's a great player. I don't disagree with that. I'm just like tired of the Griezmann rumor.
Well, you just wait till he comes.
That'll be
That's what he's
Roll
saying.
it
He's
back.
like, I'm just
Yeah.
actually-
Who else could sign a DP? So we have LAFC. They have that spot open. Obviously, we've been talking about Nashville for, it seems like
Yeah.
forever here since Ake Loba, well,
Mhm.
before he got bought out, and then
Mhm.
after he did. Minnesota. Kaylin, you mentioned the striker rumors.
Yeah.
Teemu Pukki still floating around.
I'm just gonna put these on because
The
I know too much.
Glasses
okay?
on for.
I'm gonna plead the fifth.
I like
and
that
move
there's a
on.
What is
second
it?
character. When the glasses
I know.
go on, it's
I
one
like
person.
that too. I like that too.
This
You can
is
still hear with the glasses on.
no.
Yeah.
I pulled them off my ears a little bit.
Chicago. Do they have a DP?
Yeah,
spot
so
open?
Nashville are going to sign a DP forward. Minnesota are going to sign a DP forward. Again, the rumors for Teemu Pukki have been out there. Like we were talking on a pre-show meeting. I'm surprised that Nothing was announced a couple weeks.
Stop looking at me.
I'm looking forward.
No,
You're in my line of vision.
directly at me.
So again, Timu Pukki from Minnesota. That's the name that's connected out there. Nashville are going to sign a DP forward. Chicago are signing Ousmane Doumbia, Seydou Doumbia's brother from FC Lugano sister club. He's coming in as a DP temporarily. He's a DP for the rest of the season.
Oh, interesting.
And won't be in the offseason.
Did Ignacio Aliceta give the sign off?
Ignacio Alceda's had a good season for FC Lugano.
That's great.
They're expecting him to transfer to a top 5 league. But yeah, so they're
it all worked out. Except for Fire fans.
So for Chicago, it's underwhelming because the idea was a DP forward. And George Heights, even I interviewed him as part of kind of talking about the signing, and he was like, look, if ownership would have said if we wanted to go for a big DP forward, they would have put the money there. But this is more about keeping flexibility. The coaching staff wanted a central midfielder to use this DP spot as. Again, it keeps the flexibility. Heights, technical director Sebastian Peltzer, and head coach Frank Klopas, all of their deals could be done at the end of the season. Like Klopas has been an assistant forever. Like he's only head coach to the end of the season. And again, then the front office flexibility or the front office question marks. So that's kind of where Chicago are going with signing a 31-year-old central midfielder from FC Lugano as their third DP.
8 goals for Ignacio Aliceta in only 1,400 minutes for Lugano.
We always knew he was a big-time player.
It was just needed to see that.
That's why he's never played in the playoffs in MLS.
Biggest outgoing transfer will be, Tom.
So it's tough because if it's Thiago Almada, it'd be a league record signing. So like that's where you have to start. But Atlanta, in a perfect world, would love to keep him. It just depends on when the bids come in. They're in a spot where they don't. It's not like they're trying to get rid of him, but they might be kind of powerless to let him go. Outside of that, like I think in a perfect world for both Cincinnati and Brandon Vasquez would be if they agree. Like he's not leaving in the summer. I think he even came out and said that, like because he was asked and he's pretty open in interviews.
Well, Tejan deal.
Yeah, that's kind of like, but. When you're a European, if you're Borussia Mönchengladbach, who are one of the teams, Everton was another team. If you're spending $10 million on a 24-year-old center forward,
you want him from the beginning.
You want him right now, yeah. But so that's where it's going to be tough. Who knows what those offers would be? But if I had to guess, like educated guess, it'd be that. Or if New England do let go of Georgi Petrovic, because there are a ton of teams in Europe that want to sign him, if they were going to let him go now, it would have to be for some stupid number. Like again, that's another one where let's agree for the winter and move forward. But yeah, those are kind of the 3 names.
Who's the team nobody's talking about you expect to be busy? Anybody jump in with questions for Tom? We can just grill him.
Oh, I love this. I didn't know if it was just...
It's open season on Tom.
I was just going to go hit the bathroom.
Yeah, I don't know if New England
people are while you listen to him talk from afar. Yeah, I
don't know if people are or are not talking about New England, but that's a team that after buying out Josie Altidore, they have Max Tam available in their budget. They're going to sign a winger, and they're looking to sign a number 6 or like a kind of a defensive midfielder. And again, there's always going to be the questions about with Georgi Petrovic and some other players. So New England is a team that I think is going to be busy, and they fit this answer well because with those right moves, this is a MLS Cup contender. They have elite top end talent if Petrovic is still there, if Carlos. So just starting with those 2 players and everything else they have, this is a kind of a MLS Cup contender team.
What do you think about NYCFC?
Oh, you just took it out of my mouth as well.
Well, we thought they were going to be more. We're on the same page. We thought they were going to be more aggressive, I think, in the last window.
Yeah, because they had this track record of they would just kind of let deals go. Again, they brought in a few players like the last week of the primary transfer window, not this season, the last season. So we kept on thinking, oh, they must be doing that again. And then just no signing came because it's obvious. They don't have a senior center forward. Gabe Siegel is the only natural center forward on the roster. He hadn't made a professional appearance before this season. Like, it's obvious. This shouldn't be that difficult. And they brought back James Sands to play defensive midfield. They've had some injuries at center back. They're light at center back. James Sands has had to play center back. That wasn't the idea. Part of their pitch for James Sands to come back was that you're going to play defensive midfield. And he's like, I understand I might have to play center back sometimes. But it happened pretty quickly that it was just, one injury or with Thiago out and then Maxime Chanot on international duty. It's all right. James Sands, you have to play center back. That wasn't the plan. So NYCFC is disappointing. Like, they have so much attacking talent. A lot of the talent is redundant. Talis Magno, Gabby Pereira, Santi Rodriguez, Richie Ledesma. Those are 4 really great players. They do a lot of the same things. They need a center forward. And like Richie Ledesma is better when he's not playing as a false 9. Same thing with Santi Rodriguez. Same thing with Talis Magno. So NYCFC, they need to sign a center forward.
What do you think could happen with Duncan McGuire for Orlando?
Anderlecht are intrigued by him.
Was I on the same wavelength as you?
I'm here for that question. I was like, look at your phone.
To talk about Duncan McGuire.
I was looking at your phone. I was like, did she get a text from Doyle? Who?
No, I
agree. Yeah.
I love him. So I'm interested because you have someone like Kara and then Duncan that's been on fire. I'm
Yeah.
starting Duncan all day long over
maybe you
Carter.
move Kara.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that could be a possibility, right? Like if you look at this, if you have a DP but like Kara has been playing and scoring as well. So
No, for sure. But that's why I'm 22. That's why
Yeah.
I'm saying you'd probably move Duncan McGuire.
yeah,
Well,
I mean,
if you're
but
going to get
he's-
money overseas, but
Yeah.
if you could get Duncan McGuire to stay,
yeah, I think
get rid
that's
of
the
Kara.
ideal.
Yeah. Not
know.
get rid of Kara, but move
Right.
Kara, and then Duncan McGuire is your forward for the next
Yeah.
5 years. Your
just
hope
love
would be,
him.
except DK left pretty quick.
Yeah,
So it may not work out. San Jose is an interesting one to me of like, they're good, they're thin because you were starting this project. And so you didn't put too much into it of like full long-term
Right.
contracts, but Lucci's proven it works. So my question is like, it's not DP spots, but like, where can they just get more talent to make this team a little bit deeper? They seem to me one of those teams like, can they make trades in the league?
that's a good shout. Yeah, and I think that would be probably the best angle. And like, I think the other side of this too is what happens with Kate Cowell. There's obviously been a bunch like they rejected a couple.
It's growing in
bids.
confidence since the U20 World Cup, played for the U.S. men's national team this weekend.
Boing.
A lot of people are talking about it.
They rejected a couple bids from Reims, French club Reims last year. So if bids come in this year that are acceptable this summer, if they move from him, then they absolutely need a starting level winger. But I think, like you said, they're still a little light. They could kind of maneuver around. But they did, like the Jonathan Mensah trade was significant. They brought in a new goalkeeper. Like the end of last summer transfer window, they brought in 2 new starting fullbacks. So there is a lot of new pieces, and then Carlos Guerrero, obviously. So there was a lot of movement. So I think for me, it starts with Kate Cowell. You figure that out first, because if he goes, you need a starting level winger.
What
Benji
about
Kokanovic, luckily they held on to him.
what about Inter Miami with Leo Capana? Because the last 2 games he hasn't started. They've been linked to Tata Martino, so probably
dumber.
Joseph Martinez. What?
Sorry, Benji Kokanovic is.
Why
I
is
think-
everyone?
No, I'm
No.
stoked.
They're
about-
making fun of. It's making
No.
fun of Wiebe.
Oh.
I'm on Wiebe, but
Same
trade
way-
Leo Campagna to Nashville. That's the move I want to see.
Really? Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be. But like, because Inter
Taylor's
Miami,
like, stop.
no, but Inter Miami have come out and said we want to hold on to Capana. But I'm having a tough time seeing it because he hasn't started then the last
I
2 matches,
know.
and he came on in the 78th minute last game
I
when you're
know.
down by 2 goals. It doesn't make sense to me.
They got a lot of.
And it's not like
issues.
Joseph Martinez has been playing well.
And also, if you wanted to build that value in him to trade him or move him,
Exactly,
wouldn't
play
you
him.
Be starting him.
But like, it's a difficult spot because Javi Morales is the interim manager. So like, what if Tata comes in and says he's going to be my starting center forward? Like, then what do you do? So I don't know. I think that there's just too much influx for this group right now. And again, you get the Leo deal once it's signed, once the Busquets deal signed, all that, and then I think you reset. Like, if they were going to make flexibility, he's just about the only player that they could lose that would bring you back value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody else.
Yeah.
So to that
Nashville's a
line of
great
thinking,
shout, though, by the way.
Yeah. How good would he be
Yeah.
playing in front of, alongside? He can drop in and create for Hani a little bit. He's a huge target on set pieces and on the
not a
far
bad
post.
shout there.
Gary
He
Smith,
moves well. Yeah.
proper forward mate.
And also,
It's a
I've
long-term
sort of
move,
hammered
so.
this a few times. Nashville has struggled bringing players into this league. They have hit a home run pretty much on every player they've acquired in Major League Soccer when they can like see
they-
them work at this level.
They have
And
a DP
Campagna's
spot
done that.
open, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it makes
So if they brought it in, it would open up a DP spot for Miami. Plus,
For
whatever
Luis
they
Suarez.
give is going to be league resources that you can use right
he
now.
just
in
re-signed as a
allocation.
young DP. I know that the U22 initiative has not exactly been where they've invested a ton of bucks, but that would leave open
For
spots
Nashville.
I think Walker also leaves that spot open as a DP.
No, Walker's above max.
Oh,
now,
okay.
so it doesn't.
Well, the young
Shout
DP
out to
status
Walker
would-
getting paid.
deserved.
yeah. All right. Any other transfer
drama.
questions? By the way, the Benji Kokanovic thing is just everybody in the group chat said they should sell him when Matias Almeida came.
For
and I was the
$1.5
lone
million.
dissenting voice who was like, you should not sell Benji Kokanovic. And then it seems like they
He
should have
like
sold
doesn't
him.
play.
I think
Yeah.
just one more team to bring up, FC Dallas. I think that could low-key be one because they have an open DP spot. They were or could be looking for like an attacking midfielder, someone who can play centrally or wide. But again, like Jesus Ferreira, there is like legitimate interest from Spain, France, and Mexico. So
Wow.
if Jesus Ferreira goes, this team is screwed for like
Boned.
Yeah.
they would
don't have a team.
yeah, and because he's been phenomenal. So that's one to kind of watch out for because they have flexibility, but also again, if you lose Jesus Ferreira, then not sure where you're going.
When we were talking about the conferences, Dallas is one of those teams where, you know, between that 5th and 12th range, which if they make a move to take them over the top,
Yes.
there is space to be a top 4 team in the West, but it doesn't feel like any of the teams in that span are going to make that move. And so they're going to continue. But like if you bring in legitimate DP who just adds to your team
Yep.
without taking away, you would now jump into the convo with Seattle, LAFC, and St.
I
Louis.
think
totally agree.
RSL, you got to put them in that combo with Chicho.
Already?
I think so.
Interesting.
Based on road form.
Yeah.
If they can get the home side figured out, they will rise up the table very, very quickly.
Yeah, I'm not mad about that.
All right, let's finish off with some notes on the USMNT and the Gold Cup. 1-1 draw with Jamaica. Got a little bit nervy there for a while. Saved PK was helpful. Could have been 2-0 Jamaica.
Oh.
Damian Lowe flying the flag for the Union of Major League Soccer.
Should have been red carded in the 2nd minute,
Yep.
scored then in the 13th minute.
That is like
That's
a
the way you do
Damian
it.
Lowe experience.
Yeah,
right
that's the way you get it done.
That is pure Damian Lowe, isn't it?
Yeah. What did you see? Anybody who watched the game, because I was locked in on MLS on Saturday night, did not see.
Yeah, it was an underwhelming performance from the U.S. I think a few guys struggled. Pretty much the entire central midfield struggled, and so they couldn't create chances and dictate play until Georgi Mihailovic and Christian Roldan came off the bench. So my assumption is those two will start in the next game. Definitely Mihailovic, hopefully Roldan as well. And then Vasquez comes in and scored. I thought Jesus Ferreira was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Sands was fine. I thought that Jalen Neal did okay off the bench at halftime, considering he's playing against Mikel Antonio. And I thought it was a good day for Jamai at left back because he just doesn't have a ton of experience at this level. And I think with him, you're just trying to prove that you're up there. Right? For other guys, it's like, can you be the best player on the field? I don't think he has to do that yet. I think it's like, are you ready for that next stage? And I thought he did that in this game. So those are like the 3 or 4 guys that stood out.
The only thing I have to say about this is Brandon Vasquez. I have been beating this drum for probably the last year and a half now. He should have been at the World Cup with the U.S. men's national team. He is a player that they don't have within that squad. He's a big target body striker, good on set pieces, good with his feet, and he's now starting to get intelligent with his runs both on and off the ball. So I would love to see him get called in when the full team's there. And it's no disrespect to, the players that are in now, a lot of great quality players for this U.S. men's national team. But Brandon Vasquez, for me, deserves the chance to play with the first team. Bless you.
Bless you. Let me throw in, I forgot to name Matt Turner. Obviously was phenomenal.
Mhm.
Happy birthday. And BJ Callahan, cool quote saying that Matt Turner asked to play in both Nations League and Gold Cup. That's why he's the one, not the one, but he's really the one true, like plays a lot of minutes, who's in both.
The
and
one true
yeah.
goalkeeper.
And shout out to Bergen County's own, just repping the
What's up, Bergen
badge,
County?
carrying it. So congrats, Matt Turner. And I would remind everyone 2 years ago in Gold Cup 2021, it was brutal in the group stage for the U.S. They crushed, I think, Martinique. Otherwise, they barely beat Canada. They shouldn't have beat Haiti. And then
It's a tough tournament, isn't it, though, where they have to go and
With
fields
this
to play
group.
on, yeah.
this group met last Monday.
Yeah.
So like the soccer's not going to be there. It's not great. You're trying to look for individual performances and get some experience for some of these guys like a Vasquez and whatnot. I expect Vasquez to start. I think Ferreira will slide out wide and be good in that spot for them. But otherwise, it was pretty much a struggle across the board.
Matt in the Cream City, just want to shout him out before we get out of here. He started his emails, plural, with "Good day, fellow sickos." Matt emailed us at 7:55 a.m. on Friday and 7:07 p.m. on the same day. So
Legend.
Matt in the Cream City in Milwaukee, you are one of us. You have a sickness that you truly do not want to be cured. He did ask this about Hernan Losada for Manager of the Year. Also, which Canadian team is highest up the table? Montreal, within 3 points of Columbus, Seattle, and Houston. So he's praising Montreal here and also dogging on the West because 2 through 7 are separated by very few points. So welcome to the second half of the season, says Matt in the Cream City. Shout out to Hernan Losada. The home form for Montreal has been very good.
So I think it's pretty obvious as of now, Pat Noonan is Coach of the Year, right?
Yes.
Who are the
you were
three?
gone. I think you were gone. We had that
Oh,
discussion.
you already decided. Did you
Yeah.
guys put your
You're not
finalists
listening?
in then? No, I don't.
No, give
I've
us
never
your
listened
finalists.
to
Oh, I
ETR day in
haven't
my
heard.
life.
Go on.
So the final, Bradley Carnell is a finalist,
Yeah.
Should have been
right?
there. Yep.
That's who I would have voted for.
So those are 2. And then behind that,
Gary Smith is up there.
I think it's Gary Smith right now.
Yeah.
I don't think Bruce can do it again.
But a tough week for Nashville.
Oh, for sure. But for 5 weeks, man. Wait 5 weeks.
Wait, yeah. At this point, wait,
If
4.
Wilfred Nancy
We only
keeps
need 4.
going, I feel like you got to give
That's a great
Wilfred
one.
Nancy a
It's a
shout.
great one.
If the form
What do they need to be?
continues.
Top 4 in the East for him
I
to
think
get
so. I think so. If he can turn this like he did, like coming from Montreal and then going there and doing what he's been
Yeah.
doing, I
New
have
center
to
back?
put him in my top 3. If he continues the
I
form.
think
my vote last year.
I think Lucci and if they were to continue results, Ben Olsen as well.
Home Lucci, home Ben.
Yeah.
Away Lucci, away Ben.
But I think if they're top 4, they'll be in that combo because let's be real, Schmetzer's not going to be, just because Seattle are sort of where you expect. Trundle's not going to be like, and
If
I don't
they
think
would have won
Bruce is going to be.
CCL and got on to
Yeah, then they were.
And I don't think Bruce or Jim Curtin are going to be based on the way the year has gone. So I think there's space for like, if you're 4th or 5th, But a surprise, you probably get in to that convo as a finalist over people who are on teams that are above you in the standings.
Yep.
All right.
That's
It for us.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here, for listening to 80 minutes of riveting MLS talk. We appreciate you. We love you. Shout out Matt in the Cream City. We need more people like you. We will see you.
You mean like
Thursday.
Wide Gormy on Twitter, who asked if Jack Harrison, if he switched to the U.S., would be a starter?
That's our
for
people.
the U.S. national team. That's the good stuff.
Adios, everybody. Enjoy your week.